Who was most likely to improvise during the scene?
Sacha Baron Cohen.
Right now, you look like Okay, come on, we got
many others out there, but focusing on Dominique Thorne, alright, the star of Ironheart, the actress who plays Riri Williams. She's going on the same constant trope about Marvel fans and those that oppose DEI and LGBTQ and all this nonsense. So let's get into this. Now, one thing about Marvel right now is that we know that Kevin Feige and Bob Iger, they're also engaging in damage control about this show.
And why she's frustrated. That's how I feel watching her interviews.
How do you feel about the impact that she's having on young Black girls? And I'm going to be completely honest, on Black women.
You know, this is yet another area that's getting vibrant. It's getting full in the way that it should be.
One major development going on now involves more to do with Dominique Thorne going off at the fans yet again in the midst of the Ironheart ratings disaster.
Where all of that came from. And that to me is super familiar with Mr. Tony Stark over there wanting to cloak the
people. That's the foundation of a good TV series right there. That's why the show hated it.
Hi, I'm John. My parents didn't say I love you, so now I play with knives.
Hi, I've got 70 IQ. I can't abstract and think I'm the center of the universe. I can't comprehend anything that isn't me, so I just think men are broken. Men are interested in things they evolve for war, and therefore they like tools, such as knives.
Here in the midst of the ratings disaster, well, it only gets worse for Marvel at this point, because you guys may recall when they forced Robert Downey Jr., they made a deal with him to take part in the press tour to prop up Riri Williams, played by Dominique Thorne, on multiple talk show programs out there, a lot of which were, of course, affiliated with Disney. We'll talk more about that down the road. However, this is where it gets really intense, because we know that Robert Downey Jr. is a
Dominique Thorne, I have seen all of the first 3 episodes of Ironheart.
Yeah, and it's like the real Tony Stark. It's like back somehow, and there's like a moment where she's flying through, and he's like, "Who is that?" And she's like, "I'm Ironheart, Mr. Stark." And he's like, "I like that girl." And then he like goes to do something else. Like that would be like the level of something that I think would possibly happen.
Ironheart was supposed to be Marvel's next big thing, a fresh face for a new era, packed with potential, diversity, and the bold vision fans had come to expect from the MCU. Riri Williams, the genius teen who inherited Tony Stark's tech legacy, was set to usher in a new wave of heroes. Marvel poured millions into development, fans buzzed with anticipation, and Dominique Thorne, a promising young actress, was catapulted into the spotlight. On paper, everything looked perfect. But behind the scenes, something was unraveling.
That is all ego. You would never find me with an ego like that. Not with my fallopian tubes.
Skippable series. It's always about you, right? It's always about the audience. It's amazing. Doesn't matter if it's the 2024 election or whether it's a Disney streaming product. It's always about like how evil is the actual voters? How evil are the audience?
And fast. The show didn't just fall short of expectations. It completely imploded. Critics called it disjointed. Viewers complained about the pacing, tone, and especially Thorne's performance, which many described as oddly stiff and emotionless. But the real storm was brewing off-camera. What began as subtle rumors of on-set conflict exploded into full-blown controversy when comedian and actor Sacha Baron Cohen broke his silence. What he revealed painted a picture that was far more chaotic and dangerous than anyone could have imagined.
Not only is she incredibly controlling, but she's a bitch about it to everybody who works for her when things inevitably start spiraling.
Oh my God, she's so full of it. This is not...
Suddenly, it wasn't just about a failed show. It was about control, ego, and a power struggle that could rewrite how fans see one of Marvel's most ambitious projects. How did a series meant to honor Tony Stark's legacy turn into a PR nightmare? And was Dominique Thorne at the center of it all? The truth behind Ironheart's collapse is more shocking than anyone expected. When Marvel first announced Ironheart, fans believed they were witnessing the birth of the next MCU icon. Riri Williams was introduced with promise, brilliant, bold, and positioned as the spiritual successor to Tony Stark.
Now, Disney CEO Bob Iger, he's been going through a ton of backlash internally over at the Disney company and exactly what's been going on over there between himself and everyone else on board, right? The board of directors, the executives, and everyone else in between that run Disney Plus, that run the Walt Disney Company entirely.
Her debut in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever created instant buzz. She was young, Black, and a tech prodigy, exactly the kind of progressive lead Marvel was looking to spotlight. Dominique Thorne seemed like the perfect casting choice, fresh, talented, and ready to lead an entire franchise.
Natalie AI thing seems utterly preposterous and ridiculous, and even for an MCU show, I'm finding it to be a little bit of a bridge too far to go. The heist crew, all lame. Every single one of them, all lame.
Behind the scenes, Marvel was betting big. Merchandise was prepped, press junkets were lined up, and the series was slotted as one of the studio's biggest streaming events of the year. But when Ironheart finally aired, the hype vanished almost instantly. The energy that had once surrounded the project evaporated, replaced by confusion and disappointment. What was meant to be a character-driven, emotionally grounded story instead felt like a scattered narrative experiment.
Going out there from the media that you are just a racist if you don't like Ironheart. The reason it's getting this backlash, the reason it's getting bad reviews, the reason that fans don't like what they see, it's just because all the damn racists out there, Jay. It's MAGA trolls, it's racist, it's blah.
The tone was inconsistent. The character arcs felt underdeveloped, and the emotional depth that defined earlier MCU hits was nowhere to be found. Even casual fans were asking, what happened? The contrast between expectation and reality was jarring. This wasn't just a show that missed the mark. It felt like a project that didn't know what it wanted to be. For a series intended to carry the legacy of one of Marvel's most beloved heroes, Ironheart seemed to crash before it even had a chance to take off. When Ironheart finally dropped, the first wave of reacta wasn't rage, it was confusion. Fans flooded social media with mixed responses.
Series, and it's just hot garbage. It still has right now on IMDb a 3.7 out of 10. That's like Snow White level bad. It's the worst thing that Disney streaming has ever produced. So these are the reviews on IMDb. You can see here, 52% now giving it a 1 star.
Some defended the show, saying it wasn't that bad or that it just needed time to build. Others were less forgiving, calling it a mess from the start. The show's identity felt blurred. Was it a coming-of-age tech drama, a superhero origin story, or an attempt at social commentary wrapped in MCU packaging? Viewers couldn't tell, and that uncertainty quickly turned into disappointment. At the center of this confusion was Dominique Thorne's portrayal of Riri Williams. On paper, Riri is a layered character, intelligent, driven, and emotionally complex. But what fans saw on screen didn't match that vision. Many described Thorne's performance as stiff.
Daredevil was a massive disappointment in the ratings for them, certainly. We do know, when you go and you look at through these charts, the first couple days it was out, because we have 3 days of Ironheart in these numbers, just like we had 3 days of Daredevil in these numbers. And Daredevil in those first 3 days had over 300 million minutes watched. So, and that was with less possible runtime than something like Ironheart. Yet we know that it hasn't matched that.
Overly confident and emotionally flat. It wasn't just that the character lacked depth. It was that her tone never seemed to match the gravity of the scenes she was in. 1 minute, she was delivering sharp, cold dialogue. The next, trying to project vulnerability. It didn't land. Critics echoed these concerns. Reviews called the series directionless and inconsistent, with multiple outlets highlighting how Riri's personality seemed to shift from episode to episode. Was she supposed to be a misunderstood genius, an angsty teenager, or a fearless leader? No one seemed to know. Not the writers, not the directors, and certainly not the viewers. The show was spiraling into identity crisis territory, and the cracks were starting to show. The confusion around Ironheart turned into full-blown controversy when Sacha Baron Cohen, known for his bold characters and fearless satire, dropped an unexpected bombshell. Cast as Mephisto, a long-awaited villain fans had speculated about for years, his involvement was supposed to elevate the show. Instead, it detonated its reputation. In a quiet podcast interview months after the show aired, Sacha broke his silence. What started as a lighthearted conversation quickly took a dark turn when the host asked, "Was Iron here? Fun to work on?" Sacha paused, then said something no one saw coming. You ever work on a project where one person thinks they're the director, the star, the producer, and the studio head all at once? He was talking about Dominique Thorne. According to Cohen, the chaos on set wasn't due to Marvel's usual production pressures or creative experimentation. It was because Thorne allegedly believed she was in charge. From the very first table read, he claimed, she acted like she was leading the entire production. She questioned direction, challenged rewrites, and even pushed back on producers. And when someone disagreed, she didn't back down, she doubled down. Sacha described the set as tense, awkward, and creatively stifling. He claimed that crew members were walking on eggshells, too afraid to speak up, while directors were quietly sidelined. He even admitted he considered walking away from the project entirely. His comments didn't just shock fans, they pulled the curtain back on Wa. Many suspected something was seriously wrong behind the scenes. After Sacha Baron Cohen's bombshell, whispers about behind-the-scenes chaos turned into a storm of leaked details and anonymous reports. Sources close to the production described an environment where tension wasn't just present, it was constant. Multiple insiders claimed Dominique Thorne often clashed with directors, openly questioning scene directions and even demanding script rewrites mid-shoot. What began as minor disagreements allegedly escalated into full-blown power struggles. Some crew members started referring to her behind closed doors as the Iron Dictator, a nickname that, while half-joke, reflected the frustration brewing on set. Directors were said to have walked away from certain episodes, unable to manage the increasingly combative atmosphere. One crew member reportedly called the shoot a sinking ship with no captain, where last-minute changes became the norm, and any dissenting voice was quietly removed or replaced. Production schedules slipped. Scenes were reshot multiple times. Morale plummeted. Some staffers quit halfway through, citing mental exhaustion and poor leadership. Even Marvel insiders were caught off guard. The studio, known for running tight, controlled productions, suddenly found itself dealing with unexpected delays, rising costs, and rumors of internal mutiny. But instead of addressing the chaos publicly, Marvel doubled down on secrecy. NDAs were enforced more strictly than ever. Information stopped flowing. Yet the damage was done. The once promising Ironheart had transformed from a celebrated project into a toxic workplace scandal few were willing to speak about, at least not yet. As whispers turned into headlines and fan theories morphed into damning speculation, Marvel did what it always does best: control the narrative. But this time, instead of bold statements or damage control interviews, the studio chose silence. Quiet, calculated silence. Scenes that had featured Sacha Baron Cohen's Mephisto character were drastically scaled back. In some cuts, he was removed almost entirely. Rumors suggested Marvel trimmed his role not for story reasons, but to distance the project from the controversy now swirling around it. The final edit of Ironheart was a shell of its original vision. Key confrontational moments featuring Dominique Thorne were cut down or re-edited. Whole subplots disappeared without explanation. Critics noticed the show felt choppy, with awkward transitions and scenes that hinted at something deeper, but never delivered. Behind the scenes, Marvel was clearly working to scrub the most chaotic fingerprints from the series. Marketing efforts were also curiously toned down. Compared to Marvel's usual all-out media blitz, Ironheart arrived with little fanfare. No press tour, no major interviews. Trailers were minimal and oddly generic. Dominique herself did no press for the show. No red carpet, no social media hype, nothing. As if Marvel wanted the series to come and go unnoticed, Internally, NDAs were reportedly reissued and expanded. Staffers who spoke off-record before suddenly went quiet. Marvel didn't deny the rumors, but it didn't confirm anything either. The message was clear: bury the noise, salvage what's left, and move on. But for fans paying close attention, the silence said more than any statement ever could, even without official statements. The cast's behavior spoke volumes, and fans noticed. Typically, Marvel productions are backed by a loud, proud cast, flooding social media with behind-the-scenes photos, premiere selfies, and hyped-up interviews. But with Ironheart, it was radio silence. Dominique Thorne's social media activity came to a screeching halt around the time of the show's release. No promo posts, no thank you messages, not even a go stream now. For someone leading a major Marvel project, the silence felt deafening. Other cast members weren't much different. Some who previously followed Thorne on Instagram quietly unfollowed her. A few actors posted vague, cryptic quotes about boundaries, knowing your worth, and keeping your peace. Nothing outright damning, but just enough to spark curiosity. One supporting actor even posted an Instagram story during filming that read, "Energy doesn't lie," before deleting it hours later. Fans also pointed out the awkwardness during a Comic-Con panel months earlier, where Dominique seemed noticeably isolated from the rest of the cast. Her comments were brief, her demeanor tense. At the time, most brushed it off as nerves. In hindsight, it looked like a warning sign. No one addressed the rumors directly, but the atmosphere around Ironheart grew colder by the day. It wasn't just the audience that seemed unsure about the show. Those who helped make it were distancing themselves, carefully, quietly, and unmistakably. As the rumors gained momentum and fan speculation reached a boiling point, everyone waited. See if Dominique Thorne would speak out. And she did, but only briefly. In a now deleted Instagram story, she wrote, "The stories are baseless. People love drama more than truth." It was the kind of statement that seemed more like a flicker than a fire. A quick swipe at the headlines without addressing anything directly. And then, just as quickly as she reappeared, she vanished. Her Instagram page went nearly silent. Posts from the Ironheart set were taken down. Comments were disabled. Stories stopped. Public appearances canceled or no-shows. Even fan pages, once flooded with new content, were left recycling old press images from her Wakanda Forever days. It was as if Dominique had pulled the plug on her own spotlight. The only signs of life came in the form of cryptic reposts, quotes about being misunderstood, about leading in silence, and the pressure of being held to impossible standards. Some saw them as defiant. Others saw them as confirmation that the pressure had gotten out her. But no follow-up statement ever came. No interviews, no explanations, just silence. Marvel, for their part, didn't force a response. In fact, they seemed perfectly content letting her fade into the background. Whether it was by choice or by quiet agreement behind closed doors, Dominique Thorne went from being Marvel's next leading lady to a vanishing act, one that left fans with more questions than answers. With Ironheart barely making a ripple and Dominique Thorne disappearing from both press and public view, fans are now asking the unavoidable question: is this the end of Riri Williams in the MCU? Marvel had once teased that Ironheart would be a cornerstone character in the next saga, potentially joining the Young Avengers or leading a tech-based storyline post-Tony Stark. But now, that future looks more uncertain than ever. Insiders have quietly hinted that Marvel is reevaluating the character's role. Plans for crossover appearances in upcoming films and Disney Plus shows reportedly been paused. And while no official statement has been made about recasting or writing Riri out entirely, the studio's silence speaks volumes. One source claimed her name was noticeably absent from internal storyboarding for future phases. Another mentioned that Marvel is focusing its attention on other rising stars, leaving Ironheart in limbo. Still, Some fans hold out hope. Marvel has revived characters from worse situations, some even more controversial. But Dominique's situation feels different. It's not just about a poorly received show. It's about fractured trust behind the scenes, a cast that feels distanced, and a lead actress who appears to have stepped away from the spotlight entirely. Unless something drastic changes, Ironheart may become one of the MCU's quietest exits. Not with a bang, not even with a public goodbye, just a slow, silent fade into the background of a universe that rarely looks back. Ironheart was never supposed to be a cautionary tale. Meant to be a triumph, a bold step into the future of the MCU powered by a new kind of hero. But instead, it exposed something Marvel rarely shows: vulnerability. Beneath the billion-dollar box office numbers and polished press tours, the studio's carefully controlled image is starting to show cracks. And Ironheart may have been the clearest sign yet that even the mighty Marvel machine isn't invincible. This wasn't just a failed show. It was a breakdown in vision, leadership, and communication. A lead actress overwhelmed by expectation. A cast divided. A production spiraling under the weight of too many egos and not enough direction. And a studio that, instead of confronting the chaos, chose silence over transparency. For a company built on larger-than-life heroes, it's telling that no one stepped forward to take responsibility. In many ways, Ironheart has become a symbol of Marvel's current crossroads. The franchise is bigger than ever, but also shakier. The old formula isn't working like it used to. Audiences are more skeptical, expectations are higher, and missteps don't go unnoticed. So what does this mean for the future of the MCU? Maybe nothing, maybe everything. But one thing is clear: if Marvel wants to keep its throne, it can't just keep expanding. It has to start listening. Because when even the strongest heroes start to fall, fans remember, and they don't always forgive.